It is humanly possible, and Chinese swimming prodigy Zhanle proved it. Not once, but twice during the ongoing Olympic Games in Paris. On July the 31st, Zhanle won gold and broke world record in men's 100-meter freestyle swimming, clocking a time of 46 seconds 40. While the world was still making sense of the seemingly impossible feat, just 4 days later, Pan did it again, this time in men's 4x100 medley relay, clocking 45 seconds 92 for the same distance. The splashes sent waves of public euphoria across China, but also prompted the big question: how did he do it? From an emerging swimmer who first caught the world's attention during the Hangzhou Asian Games last year to international stardom, what explains his phenomenally rapid rise? Are we seeing the birth of another great of all times, or as the millennials say, GOAT? And we have another historic breakthrough with Chinese Zheng Qinwen winning women's singles gold in tennis. How did he do it? We will unpack all of that in this very special edition of The Point, an opinion show coming to you live from Beijing with me, Liu Xin, and welcome. I'm pleased to be joined from New York by Mike Bako, sports editor at Daily National, a multimedia news and content company. From Beijing by Justin Downs, president at consulting firm Access Leisure Management, and in the studio by Paul Dong, co-founder at cultural communication company eAsia. He's been watching the Olympics for the past 40 years. So, gentlemen, I'm really looking forward to the discussion. First of all, let's talk about these breakthroughs and, of course, swimming first, Zhanle. Overnight, when I woke up this morning, one more piece of exciting news. He is a member of Team China who has won the men's 4x100 medley relay. And as I said, he broke his own record, which he set 4 days ago in the 100-meter freestyle. And he went under 46 seconds. That is just incredible to me as an outsider. Let me go to Mike first. How much of a breakthrough is this for Pan and for the sport?
And for the nation? Let's put it into context. The U.S., aside from 1980 when they boycotted the Moscow Olympics, this race has been instituted, this relay race has been instituted since 1960. They have never not won the gold. So that is how big of a sort of historical ramifications that this race was for China winning the gold, and for Zhanle to be right there at the forefront, to not only do it individually and now with the team. Really historical significance here. This is a black eye for the U.S. in terms of not winning the gold. They have been struggling a bit in these games, not rising to the level of as many gold medals as China has been able to win. Certainly we're going to the track and field coming up, but we're focusing on swimming, and this is a historical achievement, winning the gold in this 4x100.
Yeah, looking at the U.S. press on your end, Mike, I stay with you a little bit. What are the press saying, the Americans saying about it?
Well, what a lot of them are actually saying is transparently, how have they been able to do this? Some of the members of the team had tested positive in previous international competitions, going back to the Tokyo Games, and some of them are racing in these events. So that is the sort of stigma that some of the U.S. Team members as well as officials have levied. All tests have been passed so far, so it doesn't seem like there'll be much to sort of gripe about. But it really is just a progression, and seeing more and more individuals sort of come to this international competition after having been not in the same class as the US or even the French, which have really taken up their game over the last few years. So really, we've seen this incrementally over the last few years, some positive tests along the way, but certainly this one here, record-setting performance and a gold medal for the ages for them.
Well, we'll talk about the doping and the so-called positive test in just a moment. Justin, from your end, what are you seeing? Because this has been historical, not just that the Team China broke the monopoly of Team America in this 4x100 meter medley relay, but also Pan setting one time after another new records in the 100 meter freestyle.
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, look, he didn't come from nowhere. I mean, he's still a young boy. He's only just turned 20 or is about to turn 20.
He just did.
I mean, he's been on the swimming.
Yesterday was his birthday.
Exactly. So a good gift for him and the nation.
Yeah.
But he's been on the Chinese swimming radar since he was a young boy. So he's not just come out of nowhere as far as China's concerned. He's been at this for a while. And I think, as you said, he's broken, I think, 4 world records just this year. So he's a formidable looking athlete. I didn't stay up until whatever it was, 2:33 in the morning to watch the race, but I couldn't believe what I saw on social media this morning. Just hundreds and hundreds of recognitions of this feat. He's done a great job. He's a, as he calls himself, he's a bit of a rebellious guy. He keeps on pushing himself for things. He punishes himself. His coach used to punish him when he was a young rebellious boy by taking him out of the pool. He just had this burning desire to be a world champion, and he certainly showed everybody today. It's a unbelievable success for him and the team.
And Paul, you have been watching, as I said, the Olympics since God knows for how long. Have you seen a moment like this when a Chinese swimmer not only broke the monopoly, but repeatedly, in the same game in a matter of days, and setting such seemingly impossible records?
Well, for Chinese swimming, it's really a significant, development, because we have been quite used to women winning more medals over the last few decades, and only in recent years in swimming, Chinese male players are trying to catch up, and Pan all of a sudden has become the only gold medal winners. Individually and also in terms of medley. Relay, and he has contributed 2 golds, one for himself and one for the team. And I think we are trying to get used to this, because this time so far, there is still no gold medal from the more powerful women's swimmers. But things are changing, and this has been developing over the decades, because back in the 1990s, it was completely up to the female swimmers to win the medals for China. I was with them for many evenings during my own interviews with them, and it's been a long way for Chinese swimming to have developed. And back then, it was indigenous Chinese trainers and coaches, but now China has a very, very international training team and coaches.
Yeah.
I think they are very familiar with all the details how China has come about. Swimming. Especially for men's swimming, we understand 100-meter freestyle is a very iconic, they call blue ribbon event. So important. It's not necessarily correct, politically correct, to call one medal is more important than like a soccer team gold medal. But indeed, among the swimming powers in the world, they really value the 100-meter men's freestyle so much. And it's tremendous. And Pan Zhanle, 3.5 years ago, when the controversy first emerged, he was just too young to be among them. And that's why he had very little reservation about, what he would be into, controversies after winning these medals, because he was only 15 years and a half back in 2021.
Yeah. Well, there's so much to unpack. Let's get right down to it. And of course, on top of everybody's mind was this a fair and clean game? Were there other factors at play besides his hard work, his talent, or the international team of support he has gotten? And we have seen no shortages of questions, skepticism, international headlines saying basically there are more gold medals, but there are also more questions. And as Mike pointed out earlier, because of some of the previous controversies, the value or the worth of these golds are also put under the spotlight. But basically, the Chinese team have gone through extra rigorous testing regime. According to the spokesperson of the International Olympic Committee, Mr. Mark Adams, he has said that the Chinese swimmers are the most tested when asked if Chinese swimmers were competing clean. And he said that just over the weekend. And obviously that means nobody has had any problem indicating that they got extra help, but their talent, their training and everything. Mike, how do you look at the kind of scrutiny or the lack of trust, or is there some other sentiments at play here?
I think it's a lot of those things. One, it's seeing an international power come onto the stage and kind of usurp what has been traditionally the norms of who's winning, who's the dominant force. In this case, the U.S., as I mentioned, having never lost gold in this race, but also just looking back to the facts, over 24 of the Chinese athletes tested positive. Back, some of them are swimming now. So there is this stigma that is there, even though they are the most tested, even though there have been Olympic officials that have come out and said that, yes, they are the most tested. Yes, there is no red flags. Yes, there are no positives yet. But still, when it comes on this stage, as Paul was mentioning, the most prestigious of races, whether it be the 100 meters or certainly from a team perspective, the 4x100, when the race that has the most scrutiny is won by someone in such dominating fashion and such historic fashion, that's where all of the emphasis is going to be. And that's where it is right now. Certainly the spotlight shines the brightest, but if there are no positive tests to come of this, then of course they get the headlines and they get the glory.
Justin, it seems that the United States is actually putting the question mark on WADA, on the International Anti-Doping Agency, saying they're not doing their job, basically. Justin, so what can be said there? Because you found no evidence and then you're questioning the WADA. So who gets to decide whether one is clean or not? Americans?
Yeah, look, it goes both ways. And I guess in this situation for China or for anybody, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. I mean, you can test and test and test and test, and you're accused, okay, what are you trying to hide from? Something that happened in the past? Or are you just trying to prove to everybody that you never did anything wrong? And I think WADA is it's a robust, long-serving association. I mean, this is their sole job, is to protect athletes and protect the sport from any indiscretion. So I think, no one wants to lose, and I think everybody wants to find fault in the system to prove that they're better. I hope that's not really the case, but I have to believe that that WADA is at no fault. Maybe they need to upscale their testing mechanisms in the future. I don't believe that's the case because they've been doing this for so long. So, I think I truly believe that the Chinese team is clean. They won these events, or are winning these events fair and square. I think they're competing on the same platform and playing field as every other athlete at these games. And I think it's just a changing in the guard. I mean, it's time. China is becoming a powerhouse in the world of sport and obviously in the world of swimming. And this is new and this is scary for the dominating nations.
And WADA is testing everybody against the same barometer, right? If the Chinese are tested certainly this way, Justin, what do you say? Because what can you say about this, accusing WADA of not being fair or not doing their job?
You can't. There really is no basis for this unless somebody finds some rot in the system in WADA, which I don't think will be the case. I think they're held to a very high standard by the international sporting community. I think there's nothing that can be pointed at WADA. I think that they're doing everything that they're supposed to do, and everybody is equal in this situation.
One of the things that the American agents or some politicians as well and commentaries are accusing WADA is actually that WADA was soft with some of the Chinese players when they tested positive of certain substance, but the explanation was that it was food contamination. It was not doping, but contamination because they consumed some kind of food without giving enough care to what they were eating, don't drink. And that is the nuance in the story, because Mike was pointing out, in the past there was some Chinese swimmers that were tested positive, but they were exonerated. They were not given the ban associated with a proper doping. Dong, could you give more information there?
I personally have been following this for months, but I would wish that the Chinese coverage, media coverage, or the opinions expressed from the public should be allowed earlier. I think that will make it even more open. I think that will do China better, because you can't really take pride in testing positive for some substance that unfortunately as a mistake instead of a doping result. But at the same time, it's up to WADA and also maybe parties like the U.S. Olympic Committee to argue about the procedure, because it happened during the COVID period when WADA was unable to send a team to verify the result. But at the same time, I think the intensified, more frequent testing of Chinese athletes and swimmers this time around, I think would only do China better than worse. I think it's a good way for China to prove its own cleanness, and then the result will speak for everything. And also at the same time, I think the Chinese swimming system has more to do to prove positively about what has been going on. I just mentioned that you have a very international team. You should allow your international experts and foreign coaches to explain, to review all the data, how many hours you train, and all the details of your athletes, and with videos and numbers to tell the world and how hard you have been training. You know, we can take Michael Phelps and Lennox as good examples to show that they are the best of all swimmers of all time, the GOATs. And they demonstrated that they spend hours and hours in the pool. And that's exactly what's happening to Zhanle. Just a few hours during late nighttime before the final of the men's medley relay, he was found still in the water.
Yeah.
Very late at night. So that means the same logic. The once a young, talented swimmer spends very long hours in the water, don't be too surprised by his result.
Actually, Paul, you pull out a very important aspect of the story, which we haven't heard so much on the international press. And just this morning, I'm very happy that we came across this article on the Brisbane Times, where Australian reporters interviewed Dennis Cotterill, who helped coach Zhanle from 2022 up to the Olympics. And he gave out very strong testimonies about exactly what, Paul, you were mentioning, you know, how they train, whether they use banned substances. And he had a couple of quotes. I want to put up the first here. He said that the reality is Pan has not broken any rules and done nothing wrong. He was spending a lot of times and watching closely what the Chinese team were playing, and he came out and basically defended the cleanness of Pan's medals. Mike, how do you look at? Do you think his voice is going to be heeded by the skepticals?
Well, here's the thing. It's words can go only so far. I think where we'll kind of see this develop is not just now. Obviously, there's so much attention on this gold medal, but over the coming years and possibly to the next Olympic Games in 2028. Can this dominance continue? Can this competitiveness continue? So the same way that we were looking back to 2021 and the positive tests, if we're sitting here 2-3 years from now in international competition and China is still rising to the top, and then in 2028, if Pan is able to recreate these efforts, if the team is able to be as competitive as they are now, that's what's going to put these sort of questions put away. Not just one Olympic Games, not just one gold medal. Right. It's a great start for them, but where these questions get answered is in the coming international competitions, and certainly in another 4 years in Los Angeles. Can they repeat this in 2028? That's what will silence a lot of these commentaries.
Absolutely. You know what? When I started I said I want to explore this topic, I wanted to focus the great majority of my attention on how China made it. You know, how Chinese trained these athletes, how these athletes rose so rapidly. But unfortunately, we have to spend so much time to dispel the skepticism. But so let's get down to the real big question. How did Pan and possibly the other Chinese swimmers manage this? And this quote by Dennis Cotterill, who helped train Pan, he said it's unique to him. It's idiosyncratic. His body structure allows him to express the strokes the way he does. Paul, let me come to you here. And here's the quote. Basically, he was explaining, you know, what's special about Pan in terms of his body structure. He's a prodigy. How do you look at the kind of talent that Pan really has in terms of swimming? And is he still on the rise? Can he go further?
He's still quite young. He just turned 20 a few hours ago. And yes, he has a tremendous future down the road, absolutely. And also China has a population of 1.4. And which, I mean, biologically, I mean, the younger generation's own physical build has developed so much from their older generations. And yeah, when you have such a huge talent pool, let's look at swimming. Swimming remains very science-based. And as long as you have the talent, you have the very scientific training method, and you are honest and you are clean. And don't be surprised that, you know, a new swimming power emerges on this part of the world because it suits the scientific logic. And yeah, Pan has all the talents, and he has longer arms, and his legs are okay in the right ratio. But when we discussed about a few years ago about how Michael Phelps was such a talent, his mother would come up and say, "Oh, my son actually spent more hours than you in the pool." Don't exaggerate about his own physical talent. It's about your mindset and your spirit and how much you are dedicated to it. And of course, you are naturally, you know, addicted to water, and that's another thing. And Pan obviously enjoys what he does. That's why he stays in the water longer maybe than some of his teammates.
Justin, from your observation, how did Pan make it, and by such a big margin?
Oh, look, I mean, as I said earlier, he started at a very young age. I think at age 9 or 10 years old, he'd already won, I think it's something like 7 gold medals at the Zhejiang Provincial Games. So he didn't just start when he was 15 years old. He started back in his primary school days. And yeah, his natural physique, I mean, he's probably got hands like tennis rackets and feet like flippers. You know, he has got great genetics, and that, as Paul said, is only part of the process. But he had good training, he had good drive, he's got good mental strength. He's obviously got great family, friends, and a Chinese government support system around him to give him all of the tools that he needs to excel. He is a natural talent, but natural talent still needs nurturing, and he's gone to the best coaches around the world. He's got the best system in China to support him. So it's a combination of a lot of great things. And yes, he did burst onto the international scene last year and definitely this year, but it's been a long time in coming. It doesn't happen overnight.
Well, what sets swimming apart, Paul? What sets, because there are other sports where Chinese athletes are not so good yet. Paul?
Yeah.
It's a big question.
Well, I think if I remember well, decades ago, China, I mean, centrally has already set its very long-term target after winning a lot of gold medals in individual sports or in ping pong, badminton, and diving. And China set its eyes, long-term eyes on swimming and athletics. I mean, track and field. I think China understands that these two sports really demonstrate how deep you are in terms of mobilizing your total population to engage in physical education and improve your physical fitness. I think, yeah, but I like to, once again, I like to remind you, despite all the difficulties that you feel this time around in Paris, China has done otherwise better than in Tokyo. China maybe have won 2 gold medals, 1 short of 3 in Tokyo, but China has already collected 12 medals in total compared to only 6 3 years ago in Tokyo. China is doing even better in terms of total medals. And I would prefer to see that in the future there will be internal competitions between Zhejiang, Jiangsu, Guangzhou, and maybe other provinces. And that will decentralize the Chinese swimming system. And that will decrease the pressure from outside criticizing China's central system.
Well, we have very limited time, and I have to mention this. Mike, then Justin, then Paul. Each of you very quickly, the story of Zhen Qinwen. I'm so sorry, only limited time for her, but how significant is that, and how come she made it this time? Another historic breakthrough. Mike, 1 minute, please.
Another great historic breakthrough. She beat the #1 player in the world in the semifinals. She's the #7 ranked player in the world right now. So while it is a bit of a surprise, it is not a huge upset. She's certainly following in the storied path of Li Na, the two-time Grand Slam winner. So she's in great company and certainly motivating other young tennis players to follow in her steps, as well as Li Na.
Justin.
Well, what's interesting is that while people kind of look down on Chinese swimmers and perhaps other athletes, around the world, everybody seems to love Chinese tennis players. I think it's just the passion, the enthusiasm, the joy that they have for life. They're just happy players, and everybody seems to enjoy being around them. So it's really, really great for women's tennis, certainly around the world, but definitely in China, that this young Chinese girl has done so well. Yes, as Mike says, it wasn't a surprise. She's very good. She's been around for a while. And she's the first Chinese player ever to win a gold medal, even though Li Na won a couple of majors, which is great. This is the first gold medal for China. And this is going to change women's tennis in China for the next 20, 30 years. It's phenomenal.
Paul, for someone who has been following this story.
Personally, I have been following her for 3 years now on a weekly basis. I know all the details of her game, and I have been quite anxious to expect the improvement in those finesse details and skills. But this time around, especially the match she fought against the former world #1 Kerber, and she collected so many new skills and temperaments from that match before winning the match against the world #1. So now she has solidified her status as truly a world top-class tennis player from Paris on.
What is your personal emotion when you saw her winning the gold, Paul?
Well, that's indeed a milestone, and that's something coveted by such great as Novak Djokovic for so many years, and finally he made it last night. So Zheng Qin went this early into her own career. She made it something that Novak Djokovic has struggled so much over the years.
Do you think there's even greater prospects ahead because she's only 21?
Absolutely. If she stays focused on further improving her skills and also her mindset and everything, I think she does have a great future.
Yeah, all right. Well, we're not characterizing these games by the number of golds or the number of medals, but how heavy they are. Many thanks to my guest, Mike Bako, sports editor at Daily National, Justin Downs, president at Access Leisure Management, and Paul Dong, co-founder at cultural communication company Asia.